I know we've got some people that are still on the way, but I hate to keep the chairman waiting, so we'll go ahead and call the full Ways and Means Committee meeting to order. I will ask Representative Buckner if she wouldn't mind opening us up in a word of prayer. Representative Buckner.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this absolutely gorgeous day that you have blessed us with, and we ask that you help us to do your will for your kingdom and for the people of the state of Georgia, and that we will be led, guided, and directed in that way. And we are thankful for the opportunity to serve. We ask all these things in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Representative. I know we have a few more people piling in here, but just to give you a minute of where our posture is, typically we will have, as y'all well know, subcommittee meetings and vote out a subcommittee after 2 hearings, and then to full. We're bypassing the subcommittee meetings. We only have a few bills, and we have relatively limited time. So Chairman Huffstedler was kind enough to hear a number of our bills yesterday and a few before that, and I know y'all have worked to try to help us perfect those bills. So we've asked him to come talk to us a little bit about Senate Bill 366. So thank you for being here, Mr. Chairman, and turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yeah, we had a first hearing on 6 bills yesterday. We've had a few more before that. And the committee was comfortable passing out 3 of them. And the others, there was a few little technical fixes. And so if I haven't talked to you and you're one of those, we're having a meeting at 11 o'clock in the morning, extra meeting tomorrow after session starts at 9 to try to speed that along. I got 30-something bills.
We sent you a lot,
committee,
sir.
And so we're trying to go through them at a rapid pace and do that. So anyway, we appreciate you hearing this today. This sort of came out of our study committee and some other thoughts that we had, because we looked around the states next to us, and of course you can go beyond that, and there's a regular review of tax credits, expenditures, what we need to look towards in the future. The last one we had before we sojourned around the state this year was about 12 years earlier, and we think it should be a regular process. Everybody around us does it every couple of years, or if not every 3 years or so in the states around us. And so there were several things we were trying to do in this bill. We wanted some transparency there. We wanted the revenue that these use more prominently in the budget, as well as the studies that we've done over the last session to have a short summary in the revenue impact, because sometimes we see revenue numbers, but we don't really see what's already been deducted from the revenue, and we want everybody to look at all the revenue. So that's the intent of that. The other thing was on the studies. We had some suggestions from people that maybe didn't agree with some of the studies, that they have some input into it. And so we've said before the Department of Audits would put out these studies, that they would take input from others, and they might modify their report. Somebody might point out something they didn't see, but at the very least, they will have a summary of their comments on, what they think is additionally needed to know on those. And then the final one was that we also try to have a regular review process. And we sort of picked up the language of before where we did this, but I don't think the intent was that we do the in-depth that we did, because it had been so long with 12 years, but more that we, have some time to look at the previous more recent studies that we had done and kind of review those and get familiar and see if there's anything we need to know or if any action we need to take based on the results of those findings. So that's a quick summary of the bill, and certainly we'll entertain any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have anybody signed up to speak to this particular piece of legislation?
No, I'm not popular. It's the next one, I guess.
see a couple of blinking lights here. I know I have a couple of questions, but I'll wait for mine. 19, is that? Oh, okay, yeah, am I looking the wrong way? Chairman Carpenter.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Hufsteller. Quick question. There was some conversation in the hallways about when you're evaluating the tax credits to maybe have a conversation that we use the utilization report from the Department of Revenue to make sure that as we're evaluating it, we're not evaluating it based on what it could have been, but what it actually is. Is that have you had that conversation with anybody?
No one's brought that particular conversation to me, but this was the first time we've done this in 12 years.
Sure.
I thought we did a decent job at it. I know you were part of it, but we probably need to, include something that says, typical versus potential or something like that. If this would be 100% utilization, this is current utilization,
Sure.
maybe something like that.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Because I think about the gold scholarship, for instance. It maxes out the first 2 weeks, but not everybody pays. Not everybody pays their money. Like I paid mine today, but somebody's going to forget today or by the night to pay it, and so. We know, we say it's a cap at $130 million, but we know it never gets there because people don't follow through with their tax credit piece. So having that conversation, I think, is a fair one. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
A few more blinking lights. Try to do these in the best order I can. Chairman Camp.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Chairman Hufstetter, for being here with us today. My question relates to, I'm not sure what section I'm in. I'm on page 6, lines 128 to 132. You list various agencies that are to promptly provide information. I'm sure there's some other relevant information that comes from some other agencies. Should we also expand that perhaps so we can compel them to also provide information promptly?
Right. I think we can look at if some other agencies need to be involved. These are the main players that we deal with OPB, the Department of Revenue, and then of course Economic Development and DCA. One of those two are involved in most all of these credits, but if there's others, we need to include. We're trying to get the best information possible.
Of course, and I do appreciate you bringing this measure. Thank you.
Let's see. Chairman Newton, I think, is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Hufstetter. Just on a couple of things, I had a little bit of a question about. I was reading on line 24, where it really describes how the Senate would plan to, when they receive the general appropriations bill. Certainly, I don't know how much different that is than what you do now.
Well, we're actually doing that as a practice right now. You guys do 24 hours. We started doing 24 hours, but we don't have it.
But it's never codified?
It's never been codified, and that was really out of the LG's office, is they wanted to codify it into the law.
Makes
to
good
make
sense.
it
If we
practice.
start, though, on line 30, it seems to shift a little bit and say, the end of line 30, the general appropriations bill shall contain the following information. Is that going to be a requirement that's placed on the House appropriation? That earlier part looked like that's the way the Senate wants to codify theirs. Is this continuing with the Senate guidelines on how?
I think that would probably be OPB that would be involved in doing that originally, because they do all the revenue estimates, and they would just simply include.
Are those already being done also, but you want to codify
Yeah,
them?
they're being done, but they're not really in a prominent place in the budget. It would kind of move it from the back to the front with everything else, is probably the best way to say it.
You're trying to adjust the prominence,
Yeah,
even though it's
so that
technically
we
already.
we kind of see them all together, all the revenue sources and all the revenue takeaways versus.
But that, since they originate in the House, that would be something the House Appropriations Committee would have to follow. Is that correct?
Well, we would all have to follow it, but it would be originally in the budget coming from the governor and OPB would be my thinking. Somebody can correct me if they don't agree with that, but they're the ones that put the original budget out and we adjust from it. So OPB would include that in the budget. And it's there. It's just not in a place where people find it very easily. And I want make sure we're transparent on all the numbers and have them in the
Clarity is
front.
usually a benefit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chairman Knight, I think is next. 27, is that right?
Is that, yes, thank you, Chairman. I sort of in regards to 30 and 40, and I hope I'm getting this right, but, you know, looking at these changes that I think Chairman Newton just mentioned, am I correct, and I'm trying to think through this, would this require a change to the format of the you know, in this change to the format of appropriation bills? What effect or programming changes to the budget and the software that we use right now by the budget offices? You know, would it change that? And if so, have we thought through that part of what changes would be necessary and any cost?
And I haven't, of course, everyone's, you know, been provided with this, but I haven't heard anything about any additional software. I think it would just be a little bit different presentation to include that. You know, it may be a page out of the back that's a page in the front, but also has probably a little bit more information on it. But we do a lot of things in a lot of different areas, and of course, there's new items all the time in the budget that they inject in there. So I would not think this would be anything significant for them to do over an OPB.
Thank you.
3 more, looks like here. All right, Vice Chairman Crowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Huffstetler, back in, I think it was 2021, when we passed Senate Bill 6, there was with the 10 economic analysis that we currently do, the Department of Audits had to get about an extra $200,000 for the increased cost in doing those. And this asked for another couple in here. Have you got a fiscal note for this? Is there any expected increase in appropriations we're going to need to do related to having these extra analysis done?
We've made everyone aware. I haven't heard for any additional appropriations, but the following year they very well could say, you know, we need to look at more. They've been having these done typically in a lot of the university economic centers, which are not the cost of some of the outside ones, and I think that was their way of keeping within their budget.
Okay, there wasn't a fiscal note done on the
No,
bill.
there wasn't on this. No.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, Chairman Parsons.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Senator, thank you for being over here. I guess I've got some concerns. I think I'm reading the right bill. We're talking about Senate Bill 366, is that correct?
Correct.
Well, isn't it true that up until about 2005, I guess it was, that there was a General Assembly budget office that actually did the work for both the House and the Senate. And then about 2005, I think it was, the Senate decided that they wanted to have their own budget office and establish their own budget office. Do you recall that? I don't know if you were here then.
I was not here until 2013,
Okay.
so I missed that, and I missed the misery years of the recession, thankfully.
Right. So they did that. So I just have some concern.
Well, I think they did it on a trade-in.
Go ahead. I mean,
I think, I don't know if they decided they wanted the budget office.
Go ahead. Yeah.
As well as I remember, they didn't decide.
You yield?
You yield.
Yeah, no,
I
I'm
yield,
kidding.
yeah.
As well as I
Yeah,
remember-
The chairman back there can make the decision, but.
As well as I remember, we wanted to override something that the governor had done, and we had to make a deal with the Senate to go on with the votes, what I always heard.
Well, if I may be.
You may
If I may
resume.
be
Yes, sir.
recognized again. That's not, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you could very well be, all I know is the Senate did set up their own budget office at that time, and there seemed to be some, I don't know if you recall this, and shouldn't even say this, but when the Senate, the majority changed over there, it was regarded as revenge of the nerds. I don't know if you remember that or not, but you weren't here
You
then.
know,
so-
I wasn't here again until 13, so
But I guess I do have some, that being said, I just have some problems about establishing a joint committee. I mean, I'm very jealous of the fact that the House, the House has a responsibility for the budget to begin over here, and I have concerns about,
well, the joint committee,
separating that
if
out,
I
and-
could address that really doesn't take away that the House starts with a budget. It's just that since we've got these 10 or 12 issues that we've studied in the off session, that we wanted to get together every couple of years and say, let's look at these and what do we think? Sort of everyone together look at these and say if there's anything that we need to look at legislation-wise. But it really doesn't set the budget of the body. It's just,
I understand.
Just like a lot of the other joint committees that study things, this would study those. And our committee's had some things that have come out of that. We passed out Chairman Martin's bill that came out of that study committee yesterday.
Right.
But generally, it's still been originating in the House. It's just that we study it together.
Well, if I may, I mean, I appreciate the thought that's going into it. I just have some concerns about that particular part. I do think that the House, and we all know the process. I mean, we get you all see it at the same time we do. It's not like there's a big secret about what we're looking at and starting to work on. So, I mean, it's not like we're in some kind of an isolated chamber over here or compartment and nobody else knows what's going on. But
yeah, we're going to be working on it this weekend, and we found out the servers are going to be down this weekend, so that's going to make it really nice.
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman.
For the record, the Senate is responsible for the server.
All right. Chairman Martin.
Thank you, Chairman Hufstedler. I do. That's a serious question back there. On the top of page 4 with the bill, the Department of Audits. I feel like, and I understand, I think I understand the premise of your bill, that when the analysis comes back, you put it out there and you get public comment. I'm a bit concerned with putting on the Department of Audits and Accounts the responsibility for gathering this information and putting that in a report without having them commenting on. I mean, I see if there's comments but you're looking at oral submissions. I mean, what does that mean? Is that somebody's going to send us a recording? I mean, that's just Mr. Griffin and that crew did a great job with numbers, but I'm not sure they're really well set to put that together. Should that come into the legislative budget? I mean, do you have
actually wasn't my language, but it was a suggestion from those in the chamber and places like that didn't feel like they had enough input before the report came out, that they were wanting to sort of have a review of it.
And to be clear, I mean, I don't question your wish to have the review. I just question, is the Department of Audits and Accounts the place to ask to collect the data and do that, because they're more numbers folks. So I don't know if they're the right people to be set on that, but maybe we could ask them.
Yeah, maybe we can.
Yeah,
bring
I
that
don't
up
question
to
the policy or the operations of it. It's just, are they the right folks to?
And I've talked with them about a number of these issues. That particular one didn't come up as being a concern to them, but I need to specifically ask it.
That's all.
Okay, all right. Representative Smith, is it you? 28?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question, maybe even to the chair at the proper time. Will we have somebody from the 4 different categories on line 128, Office of Planning, Budget, Revenue, Economic Development, and Community Affairs, speak up and see what they think, if it's going to be an extra workload, if it might cost extra dollars? I'd like to hear from some of them.
Fair question. I know we've raised a bunch. You have any follow up there? Did you
Well,
have any responses?
I know you and I have discussed that too, and I think you were looking at trying to limit this. You wanted to make sure we didn't have a traveling road show. We about wore the chairman out, I think, this last year. So, I think we can look at some language that limits this to we have sort of a review day or whatever to go over this. And I would not think that would be too much of an imposition on any of us.
Well, yes, I know we've had a few discussions on this, and I appreciate your, willing to include some tweaks or changes here. I wanted to maybe throw a couple of other things to make sure. It has been suggested that the prescriptive language regarding the general appropriations bill might conflict a little bit with how the Constitution prescripts that we, what we include and what we don't include. And maybe we can have some further conversation there. And then I know we sent a bill over to you that had us addressing some of the credits and exemptions with sunsets first in our requests to audits. And I won't keep you here to talk about that, but maybe those are some things we could also include as we kind of weave through this. Appreciate the transparency piece here. I know y'all worked hard on it, Mr. Chairman. Is there any other questions? First hearing, and we'll see you again.
I'd be remiss to thank Chairman for getting 1181 out for it. That was a
Recommendation of our joint committee, and I appreciate him working with us yesterday and getting that out and getting it headed to the floor. We'll go to rules as
We're
soon as I'm
grateful for
asked.
any bills you pass out, Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
we've got a lot. I'm gonna be here this weekend working on them, like I said, and our appropriations chair. I'm printing off a lot of stuff since the server's gonna be down to prepare for that. But we're having an extra meeting tomorrow, and we're gonna possibly have one Monday morning as well. We're trying to get through all the bills over here.
Serious question, is somebody scheduling an outage? I mean, there's this, I mean, that's a serious question.
That's the first I've heard of it.
Who
The
would
chairman
schedule
mentioned this
routine
now. I
maintenance
don't
at this
know.
point in the year? I mean, that's a legit question.
Yeah.
I mean, echo the appreciation and the time we had across the state. I think it was valuable study for both of our panel groups, and appreciate your participation and leadership, Mr. Chairman. I don't see any more questions, and
All right.
so thank you very much.
Thanks for the hearing today.
Yes,
We'll
sir.
continue the process.
Yes, sir, and I'm sure any of our members would be grateful for any help that you could provide. As we maneuver through the Senate, is what you have provided and could provide. Thank
All
you
right,
so
thank
much,
you.
Chairman.
Thank you.
We have one other bill, and I know Chairman Cardin had Summers is here now. So you ready to go?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. All right, so Senate Resolution 82, Mr. Chairman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Sorry I was running a little late. We're in regs listening to Chairman Parrish's bill right now. It's quite a day. Senate Resolution 82, we had it last year. We just didn't get it across at crossover. But there's not a single one of you sitting up here that doesn't have a county that probably needs this bill. County and the city that need this bill. Basically, what this resolution is going to do is going to authorize counties and cities to waive delinquent taxes on properties that they want to get off and get back into the regular taxing ability. And right now, what happens is they have the way they can waive penalties and interest, but they can't waive the underlying taxes of any properties that are sitting out there, derelict properties, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then it gets to the point where the properties have so much tax on them that nobody's going to go buy them at a tax sale because they're not going to pay the taxes on them. So this bill, what this resolution does here, and we've got ACC on board, we got Georgia Realtors on board. I mean, everybody's good with this bill because it helps. But the bottom line of it is it's allow them to take an individual piece of property on a property by property basis and waive the taxes to zero or whatever they feel is appropriate on a per property basis. And it's not a blanket waiver. Each property has to be worked individually. Counties would work the counties and the school system. The city would work their city schools, if there is such a thing, and the city properties. And they would waive it on the cities. And this way, we get properties back on the thing. Now, you ask, how do you keep somebody from gaming the system? Well, what we did was we came up with a way, and I have to thank, I got Dante Handel here with ACCG, and Dante, they worked out with working this thing is that no owner of record or anyone else with interest in the property allowing them the right of redemption shall be allowed to bid less than the full amount of taxes, penalties, interest, and costs. This will prevent gaming of the system and at the waiver sale. In addition, if someone exercises their rights of redemption on a property sold at a waiver sale, they pay the buyer from that waiver the sale price plus 20% as they currently would, and the entire amount of waived taxes automatically reattaches to that property as a lien. Therefore, it'll keep them from gaining the system. So there's nobody, they can't get their cousin or aunt, uncle, or someone to go buy it from them and then turn around and buy it back at a cheaper thing to get rid of the taxes. That's how we stop from gaming the system. And basically, that's what SR 82 does. It allows us to get properties to put back on the books so that someone can buy those properties and start paying, taxes, which will help the cities, counties, and school systems. And be happy to ask any questions, like I said, Dante Handel here with ACCG can answer any questions if you have any, Mr. Chairman.
I think we have one so far. Chairlady Houston?
Why wouldn't you form a land bank and do that instead of this?
Please, yeah.
So appreciate the question, Representative Houston. So there are several areas in the state that do have a land bank. There are
Yeah.
also some areas where it's not necessarily economical. They don't have the resources to pull together that land bank, and this gives those areas an option to try and get those properties returned to a productive use.
Because I know what some of my towns are applying to start a land bank in smaller towns, and the ones that have land banks have been very, very successful. And I just didn't know what the difference, why they wouldn't get a land bank.
Yeah, this would help those areas that can't pull together the land bank. But the land banks are doing fine work where they do exist.
So we've got a
I
couple of
didn't
them.
mention, Mr. Chairman, I might mention the tax commission has to advertise these properties 2 times before they can even offer a waiver sale. So they have to try to sell them, 2 times before they can offer these sales.
So we've got a couple more lights blinking here. I'm not sure who was first. Representative Holcomb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you addressing the issue of gaming, although my sense is that the probability of that happening is likely pretty low. But in reading it, what comes to mind are properties that are owned by LLCs or some type of corporate structure. The vast majority of our properties are owned by individuals, but there are a number of properties, to include residential, that are owned by limited liability companies or otherwise. So would this be able to catch that as well?
Go ahead, yeah.
So I'm trying to think through this, but if you had an LLC that owns the property, for it to get to a situation where it gets sold at a waiver sale, they've had to not pay the taxes long enough for it to be delinquent and accumulate to a point where it's going to those tax sales, but also the property has to not be worth whatever that is, which would be pretty unlikely. I would think that any
I
property
tend to agree.
It'd be very,
owned by an LLC
very low.
wouldn't end up in this situation.
Okay,
Yes,
thanks.
sir.
Let's see, Chairman Martin?
Mr. Chairman, I think he probably answered the question I was trying to get at, is at what time, I mean, it would have to be a situation where you went through, quite frankly, a recessionary area or a downturn in property values in that particular area, or something that had been, this is going into place now. There are obviously properties that have probably been in this state for 10 or 20 years. There could easily be, that could add up into a situation. And that's what, so that was the question. I said, what in reality would it do? And so the question then would become, you have to offer it for sale in the regular method and then find no takers, if you will. You have to do that twice. And then if you do that, then you go back before the board. And if you were, say, an area I represent that has a city government, a county government, and a school district, they would all have to agree to do that, right? Am I right in saying that?
The county could agree for the county school system, but they don't have to go all the way to zero, Chairman. They could go wherever they want to go in that delinquent tax thing. Just
So the county government could agree for the school system?
Yes, sir.
Why would we allow that? You just brought it up. I mean, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Why would you?
Right.
In all other things, the county school board makes their own call about everything from, they have to sign off on a TAD, they have to do that. Why would they not have the ability to sign off here?
They're not getting anything at present.
I understand. I'm not questioning that they would sign off. I'm just questioning why we would take that ability. We don't take that ability from them when they're doing a CID or a tax allocation district and so forth. I just, did we not hear from the superintendents on that, or they just don't want to deal with it?
So there are situations where the schools in other parts of law make those decisions independent of the county. There are also situations where the county does make that decision independent of the school. For example, a Freeport exemption that is put on by the county, and the schools don't have a say in that. When we're talking about
But
these,
if I can, the difference there is that is the taxability of the property, whether it be personal property or not. It's not a question of how much the school system will charge for that, but they decide if they're going to tax or not. This is a place where taxes were due, and we're letting the county say they're not due anymore. That feels like a rub to me. If you didn't hear back from the school superintendents, I won't make issue with it, Mr. Chairman. But
We've been running it for over a year now, and we haven't really had any issue with it.
Well, I would think if the county signed off on it, the school system would sign off. But in our case, the school board's taxes are higher than the county's taxes, so they're going to have more to lose. It would almost be the school board needs to sign off and the county goes along. But my question was, so the governments would need to sign off on it, and then you go to the waiver sale after not selling.
All right, who's 26? Is it Chairman Camp?
Thank you. Hey, how are you? Thank you so much for being here, thank you so much for being here. All right, so this is probably an elementary question, but what kind of personal property was considered? Because I see that it's mentioned several times, real or personal property. Is there an instance that you're aware of where there was personal property that ad valorem tax had not been paid upon and this methodology was used?
so I don't know of a specific example off the top of my head, but I would be glad to circle up with the tax commissioners and see if I can find some of that information and get it back to you.
All right.
And some of this, Representative Camp, came from the legal department. They just didn't use real property in there, so that's why I asked the same question.
Okay, well, thank you. Just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, if it's
Please.
okay. Because I can imagine just looking at lines 75, 76, 77, when the general public read this constitutional amendment and vote on it, certain delinquent ad valorem property taxes, penalties, and interest for the purpose of placing non-revenue generating and tax delinquent property back into effective utilization status. I'm just trying to think, what personal property, what could be the impact if a county could dismiss ad valorem tax on, I mean, I own a business and I pay ad valorem tax on all the contents of the building and everything that's not real property because I'm a business. So I'm trying to figure out how this would come into play if someone just failed to pay tax on that, because it is ad valorem. It does say delinquent property. So I'm trying to figure out if it's a tie back to real property or how that would go.
Yep. So I would think that this would come into play far more often for real property than it would for personal property. And the values of personal property items that it could come up for would be significantly lower. So the chances of those items being brought to sale on the courthouse steps, not selling twice, and then the local government deciding to waive for something that low value seems a lot more unlikely.
All right, thank you.
Representative Washburn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I commend you for bringing the bill. There's a lot of property sitting around the state in dormant condition. It's not producing any revenue for anybody and of any local government, and is not being used. So I commend you for bringing the bill. I do have a question as a follow-up to Chairman Houston's question. So if there is a land bank in the county, then is this an additional alternative for them, or are they required to go through that land bank process?
Be an alternative.
Yeah, I would think this would be an alternative to that.
Good. I'd hoped that was the case. The land bank does great work, but I think this is a way to speed this process and make it a lot better. So thank you again for bringing the bill.
Thank you, sir.
Vice Chairman Crowe, do you have a question?
Yeah, just kind of touching on Chair Lady Camp's question. I guess this would just maintain consistency for the tax commissioners, because they do collect ad valorem tax on real and personal property, and although most of it wouldn't be that high value, that does include sometimes planes and boats and things like that. And I know that Chairman Chokas had a bill that Chairman Hufstetler, unfortunately he's not here, but hopefully he'll hear this. We really appreciate him passing House Bill 808 yesterday that Chairman Chokas has, which raised the limit on some of that. So, but there are some pretty high ticket personal property ad valorem tax items out there, so I guess that would encompass some of those too.
And you are correct, and I checked, you know, as you well know, you can only put a lien on an airplane in one location in America, and the lien runs with the plane. They can't get a loan on it, they can't sell it, so you're exactly right on that, yes, sir.
I don't see any more questions. I just had a couple of quick ones or kind of follow up. So when you say the gaming of the system, you're talking about the actual property owner gaming the system?
Absolutely. In other words, somebody hadn't paid their taxes, Mr. Chairman, for say years
Right.
and years, they just can't go back and buy it. They have to pay the full value.
Right. I guess where I was going with that, is there anything to keep necessarily from being gamed on the other side by the government, so to speak? And if so, the question and the way that it's worded, it is worded in such that it's, you know, I wonder if you're amenable to any changes there. It seems that, you know, waiving delinquent sounds very taxpayer friendly to me.
Mr. Chairman, if I can say something without
Yeah,
the Office
yeah.
of Legislative Counsel hearing me say this, I never quite understand the questions they ask anyway.
Well, I don't either. It just takes two of us. So.
And I have no problem with the morning, none whatsoever.
But anyway, we can talk about that a little bit later. I know another committee is waiting to get in the room, but we appreciate. The intent is, in my opinion, fantastic. I love where this is headed, and thank you for being here today. Chair Lady Houston, did you have a follow up?
I just wondered, is this the same thing as most of it heirs property? I know we had some people come in and wanted some money in appropriations, and I wasn't really familiar with the amount of heirs property we can't find titles to. Is this?
Yes and no, Representative Houston. There's like, for example, in one of my counties, Worth County, they've got maybe 6 or 8 properties. She came and spoke, the tax commissioner came and spoke about properties that they just can't sell because the taxes have gotten so high on them.
Okay.
And it's not
But I
like,
just didn't know if they were, I mean, are you familiar with the
Heirs
big
property.
push for heirs property? And I didn't know if a lot of these, if that included heirs property.
I would think it would.
I'm unfamiliar with it.
You're not familiar with, I'll give you a folder on it,
Yeah.
okay?
Oh, yeah, folder on it.
Yeah, I think in a lot of.
If it's on the tax register.
Okay, come by now, I can show you.
Okay. One more comment, if I may, Mr. Chairman. So I think, for this to apply, it has to be a property where the amount of taxes owed cause it to be upside down versus what the value is.
Okay.
And in a lot of instances, we have property that is abandoned, blighted, otherwise derelict, where that becomes the case. Overgrown.
Representative Washburn, you want to
Very quick question. I was just thinking about this. What does the bill anticipate? What sort of deed the buyer would get from the county?
I think it'd be your normal deed that you buy at a tax sale.
Yeah, I was
Commission.
assuming
I
that
would
to be the
assume so.
case, like a sheriff's
That's what
deed, I
was
believe
told.
we call it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I know, Betsy, you signed up to talk. You just going to confirm what Chairman Summers said, that y'all support the bill?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Don't want to take too much of your time. Betsy Bradfield with the Georgia Realtors. We support this bill. Appreciate both of you and your work on this. And to your comment, Chairman Houston, about heirs property, we don't believe that this gets into the heirs property issue because this is individuals that they've been trying to contact and find for years, and they have that protection for the right of redemption. So if it is an heirs issue, the heirs can come forward and pay the taxes on the property and get the property back.
With their percentage, that's right.
All right. Thank you. I don't see any more questions. Thank you again, Chairman. Hope to see y'all all later. Anybody have anything else for the good of the order? Hearing none, we stand adjourned.